So here's a silent review. Let's get started.
Excuse me. That's the end?
Nope, not yet.
Oh. You're going. Whoa. This is more than what I have on my list.
There's 23 in the mono.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, let's go back to the first image here, and I'll just move it over to this one. We'll start at the beginning where we were. Okay, Carl, the show is yours. And again, meet your mics, folks. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Carl, go ahead.
I'll read the title to you, Carl.
Yep.
Okay.
thank you.
A boy, a ring, a beach.
Yes, the title works really well with this image, bringing it together to show you what he's doing, what he's playing with, and how it works. My slight problems with this image is that I don't see enough of the boy, and that considering this is an image that is dealing with primary and secondary colors, I wondered why the photographer chose to have it on the float that he's playing with. And I chose not to keep it in.
Next one.
Berlin's Memorial to Murdered Jews.
Here again, the choice of colors in the single color, the green that goes all the way back to the image of the person in the back works really, really well. The composition is strong because of the leading lines that lead you to that single person standing among these stone blocks. Again, minor complaint, the absolute white sky, but it stays in.
Next.
Big red balloon.
Obvious name, obviously. And we're going to see another one by the same photographer. Nice image, nicely composed. He or she chose to put that balloon directly in the middle. It stands out from the buildings behind it. Let me make sure if I kept it in or not. It stays in.
All right.
Biscayne Blue. Hope I
Yes.
said that right.
Again, the choice of color here is simply gorgeous. Having this lone craft offset by the cabin cruiser in the background that is white simply makes this image flow in and out. And the emphasis of the blue in that boat, in the water that you don't really see, makes this a very, very attractive image. Stays in.
Blue-eyed trailer.
And it really is. The blue accents the perfect composition in this image. Everything works from top to bottom, side to side, and the offset of the blue image to the monotone of the rest of it just makes it quite a powerful and interesting image that brings you back to look at it on a regular basis. It's it.
Blue shoes.
Again, the title obviously works, but in my particular case here, I don't find it a particularly powerful image because I know exactly what I'm looking at, and I can't say that it's the most interesting thing that I've seen with this. I love the shadows, the way it worked. I love the contrast and the pavement behind it, but I'd like a little bit more emotion and feeling that does emphasize why that person chose blue for this image, except for the obvious of blue jeans and blue shoes. Out. And here the opposite goes almost with the previous image. We have a nice picture of a butterfly, really well composed, better than most of the things I could do with it. Background is perfect. Everything is good. Is the butterfly tack sharp? Not quite as far as I can see, especially with the head, but no, good enough to stay in.
In?
Okay, that was called Cloudless Sulfur Butterfly.
Cloudless sulfur butterfly, yes.
Okay. Next one.
Customer parking only.
Yeah, I laughed at this one when I first saw it. Again, nicely composed. That color on this monotone background works really, really well. Past that, I don't know what it's telling me, past the particular thing that it's a green sign against this really interesting white background. Let me see on my list if I kept it in or not. Yes, I did.
Next.
Evil eye.
That bird's eye is tack sharp. That one color that is added in his throat just simply works. The way the steel piece, that hook that he's sitting on, just works perfectly. The round is the blurred background just goes with this bird exceedingly well. It's a wonderful image and it's in.
Next.
Fall colors.
Yes, he or she has emphasized exactly that, what it looks like with fall colors. I'm assuming this is in Chicago from the dome in the background. But past that, it's a fairly ordinary photograph of a city scene. It's done from a beautiful vantage point. The photographer seems to have gotten down low and made it work, but it doesn't lead my eye into something that I need to look at that keeps me coming back for more. So no, it's not in.
Next.
I'm a little blue.
Again, a really wonderful composition. The part, there are so many parts that make it well in this photograph. From your eye being led in by the shapes of the walls, or whatever they are, walls leading you in to this one place where the blue is used. Now, in this case, the use of the color blue tells me something about the weather that's being photographed outside. And I'm guessing from the bareness of the trees that this is done more in the wintertime. The picture definitely speaks to me very well. Very nice. In.
Next one.
Morning dew.
I tried to figure out in this particular case why the color was chosen this way, except that that's what the flower actually was. I have a little bit of problems with the top part, and the right part of the image is that it's not particularly sharp, and the sharpest part of it is in the left-hand part of this picture. I might have been inclined, keeping it with what you want in this color, to have cropped a little bit more on the right, to have brought my eye more into the colorful part that he has in this lower left hand. It doesn't stay in though.
Okay.
Nature sculpture.
And it's beautiful, and it is. The color speaks to me. All of this one color complements this one image, this one thing that's been photographed here, which I almost don't know what it is. It looks like it might be part of a flower, which I'm assuming it is. It's a beautiful composition. Color is well used. Sharpness, while is not the best, doesn't need to be in this picture. It's really nicely done, and it's in.
Next one.
Playing in blue.
It is playing in blue, but it also looks like much of this part of this image was made with blue in mind. And when we begin to take the color out of the accordion player's face, so he begins to look like he's on the way out the door. I'm not sure that the blue is the way to emphasize this. If he had had some facial tone, almost anything, a very light tone that would have complemented the blueness of the image, I think this would have been a bit more successful image. So no, it's not in.
Rattlesnake master, sorry.
Yeah, here we use one color and one color only, and that is green, to show you an image of what is generally a green plant. It's centered in the picture. It doesn't show me a great deal of power in it. The impact of it is, okay, I took a picture of a flower, but at least the photographer was able to blur out the background and make this an interesting piece by itself. But that by alone and its single color doesn't keep it in the competition.
All right. Next one.
Red hat in Rome.
This one surprised me. I don't know when this picture was taken, but I'm not used to seeing men, the man in the background, walking with a hat like that. That reminded me more of my dad than it does of almost anybody else now. But going back to the choice of color here, the one red hat that this lady is wearing drew me into her and the rest of how she was dressed, and her coat and her neck piece and the cane. And it emphasized what it was. And as Mike had pointed out earlier, we had discussed Schindler's List, and there was one particular scene in that where the Nazis were taking out the Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto, and there was a rose, and that rose was red. And this works in that way. It's a very effective presentation that way. It stays in.
Relentless pursuit of perfection.
Love the name on this one. And I think in this case, the blue tint works exceedingly well as we're going into a darker hour where we call it the warmth hour, but it isn't always that. Here we have a bunch of photographers looking all over to see what image they can get. Beautifully composed, the trees on the top work, the color works well with it, and it stays in.
Rose on the mantle.
I had a little bit trouble.
Rosé on the mantle.
Say again?
Rosé on the mantle. Rosé on the mantle.
Okay. I read it as rose on the mantle. Rosé on the mantle is a perfect name for it. Yep. Again, we're using one color, the color of the wine. That wine color goes off into the reflection of the glass in the background, which is not remotely as sharp as anything else, but doesn't need to be. It's a beautiful image, and it definitely stayed in. And I can't think of too many ways of improving this image.
Rusty latch.
And that it is. I've seen. I almost no. I shouldn't say this. But I will. I sort of have a personal bias, and that's a problem for me with this photograph. I almost have the feeling I've seen it so often before. And even though that the photographer in this case has changed everything else to black and white, so we don't have any idea past the beautifulness of it, we only have the hook to look at. And I find that a bit troubling to me alone. I don't think another judge would choose it that way, but in this case, I'm not keeping it in.
Simply yellow.
It's more than simply yellow. It's the use of the color, both in the open flower in the foreground and the almost completely closed flower in the background, separated by this black space that you almost wonder what's in between it. The spacing is literally perfect. The placement of that closed flower in the upper left-hand corner is so beautifully offsetting the bigger flower, the more impressive open flower that makes up the rest of this picture, that if you eliminated that upper flower, you'd almost wonder why you took the picture. Really nice image. Stays in.
So what?
Yeah, so what? I think the bird on the bottom, which is one color, the sculpture part, is sort of looking up at the bird who's sitting on him, who really doesn't care very much. The use of color here is excellent. The pure chance of getting this photograph and the placement of the photograph without with a very nicely blurred background, so nothing gets in the way of what you're looking at. And that bird seems to be looking just at me. Love the photograph it's in.
Taxim tram.
Really nice done photograph. We've emphasized the ancientness of this trolley, at least to my eye. I have a distinct feeling it is not so much to the people who are riding it. The people on the side are real interesting. The fellow talking, the hands, the way they work. But the emphasis is on the trolley car itself. It's a very effective image. It stays in. Color is nice.
3 yellow lounge chairs.
The yellow works exceedingly well against the concrete below it. Again, this is a picture which I've seen many, many times, and that biases me a little about it. But I find the yellow is perfect for this image. It works perfectly against the background and everything else. So yes, it still stays there. There isn't much I would do to improve this particular image.
So you still want to keep it?
Yeah, no, it stays in.
Okay, and I want to verify the tram image that was previous. Was that in or was that?
Yes, it is still in, Mike.
In. That's
Okay.
in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make sure. Okay, very good. Now we're gonna go to the color,
Okay.
and if that's okay with you, Carl.
Yes, absolutely.
And there's 39 of these. So let me go ahead and get
Yeah,
that.
I needed to know on this, Mike, how many honorable mentions?
Wait, that.
On the monochrome, there are going to be 2 honorable mentions.
Oh my
on
goodness.
The color,
Yep.
on the color, there's going to be 5 honorable mentions.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm not
That's
prepared
okay.
for that.
No, that's okay. You can.
That's okay.
During the break.
Because interesting enough,
chew on it.
with the mono, I came up with 4 honorable mentions.
That's okay.
That's okay. Well, we'll take a break later on, and then
Okay, we'll
you can
discuss
hash it out.
We'll go over
Yeah.
it. Okay.
At the end, you'll have
And
time.
with the
No
other
hurry, no
one, I
worries.
came up with 3. So I
No
have
worries.
to add in one. We'll
You're
go
good.
over it. Go ahead with the color.
Do a run through.
Yeah, I'll do a silent run through, and let me get this off here. There we go. Okay, here we go. Here's the run through of 39. Woo.
30, 39, yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go to the beginning.
The first one is titled 528 Emma Road.
Okay, go ahead, Carl.
Yes, we have a photographer who likes to enter this in several contests over and over again. The problem I had with this photograph is, what is the primary color that I'm meant to be looking at? I've got a red window frame. I've got reddish to yellow bricks. I've got yellow bricks. I have yellow other parts. To me, and I've got a gray door on the left with a mailbox that matches it on the right. So I cannot figure out what is meant to be the primary, secondary, complementary colors in this photograph. So no, it doesn't stay in.
A pair to draw to.
We have two complementary colors here. We have green and we have yellow. The pictures, the photograph, however, does not really emphasize the flowers enough to me. The background is a bit too sharp, the extra leaves behind it. I almost had the feeling that if the photographer had darkened the background, if he or she could have more, that this would have stood out more, had more impact to it. The way it is now, it's photographs of a flower, of two flowers, not in.
Alien.
Yeah, I found this quite a fascinating photograph because of the eyes on whatever this COVID-looking thing is. Complementary colors, we work well with the blues versus the magentas in part of it, which continue into the reds at the bottom. This is a very effective picture. The black background highlights the alien and it stays in.
Blue Hour.
Normally, when I look at photographs of sunsets, I said, you know, don't do this to me. I've seen too many of them. But looking at this photograph, where this photographer has chosen carefully the moment that he or she went to take this and offset it with whatever he or she did afterwards to emphasize the beauty of the sunset itself, the yellow offsetting the blue everywhere else, offsetting the red lights on the deck that leads out literally to infinity. This is a sunset picture that I really like, and it stays in.
Blue Scare.
It did. The blue here offsets the bronze tone in her face, but the blue also complements her eyes and her lips. Everything in this picture works to make you wonder exactly what is it. Is it a real person behind that mask, or is it a sculpture? What is it? It's very effective. It's very well done. It's in.
Cat on Green.
Okay, I'm a cat person. I've had them for my entire life. And yes, it is a cat on green. He's giving me a dirty look. But past that, I don't see what makes this an exceptional picture. Yes, the colors work fine. We have the 20 cat versus the green shelf or whatever he's sitting on. But I have trouble with the lack of sharpness on the perch where he is. He is sharp, his eyes are good, but it's to me a relatively ordinary picture of a cat. So no, it's not in.
Curls.
I found this an utterly fascinating picture in that the photographer here is using the blue to offset the yellows, to offset the greens that are in it, and the blues have their own tones that work constantly to give this picture a sense of depth that just leads me further in and wanting to look more and more into each part of it. It doesn't bother me that, for example, the upper right and the upper left-hand corners are not as sharp as the rest of it, because the rest of it is intriguing enough to want me coming back to look at it and untangle it a bit more. It's definitely in.
Dalera.
Yeah, as a car person, I happen to love stuff like this. And yes, the yellow of this particular racing car is really nicely done. And the way it blends into the background slowly but surely continues. Using it against the darkness of the background is a very effective picture. Very nicely done in.
Deep in the bouquet.
It really is. We have, again, offsetting colors, but colors that tend to complement each other. We have the grayness of the little, and I don't know what they are.
Stamens.
I'm not a flower person. The little pieces that seem to be almost
Stamens.
jumping out of the flower work really well. Again, adds a dimensionality to it. The bottom right works really well, complementing the inside of the flower itself, as does the upper right. All the colors work well to keep this picture a contender. It's in.
Edisto Country Road.
I remember my visit to Edisto once. It's quite an interesting place. I remember these trees well. I enjoyed in this picture the various greens that are used here and how they're emphasized, from the dark greens on the right and top to the much lighter greens as we follow the path back into it. And there's a depth that goes on as the picture gets lighter further and further in. It's a beautiful rendition and it's in.
Emerald green.
In this one, the emerald green works. I had some problems with the hummingbird itself. While yes, the bird seems to be perching on the little bit of the twig that comes out, I'm not sure. And I'm used to seeing a hummingbird with its wings out instead of folded in as this one. I had other problems with the out of focus leaf or remnants of the leaves on both the middle left and the right, just to the right of the bird. And because of those deficiencies, even though the background is blurred beautifully, I decided it's not in.
I'm going to try to pronounce this. Suarez, Morocco fishing fleet.
Okay, the fishing fleet part works real well. Really nicely done against the blue, the sharp blue of the boats, of the rowboats, which is what they look like, versus the much lighter blue of the sky, which by its own right would be boring, except for all the birds that are flying around it, which give that blue sky make it part of this picture. It's offset beautifully by the structures themselves, which while the blue is cool, even though there's still some warmth in it, there's a great deal more warmth in the building itself. One contrasts and works exceedingly well with the other. Beautiful photograph in.
Galapagos ghost crab.
Quite a crab. Here we have one color versus a very, very, very warm color versus the cool color of the water, which slowly changes the color of the crab in the reflection. My only feeling with this is I might, and I do mean might, have cropped a little bit more of this and might have even considered making this a square image. But no, really nice. I'd like to know how big that crab actually is, by the way, but it's in.
Girl in green.
Her eyes hit me immediately. But then I went to that red hair against this green background, a green clothes, a green everything. Normally I would complain a bit about having so much excess or open or negative space on the left side, but not in this photograph. It's offset beautifully. Her eyes capture me, her warm skin tones, her warm hair color versus the almost coolness, but not quite coolness of that green makes this quite a wonderful portrait in.
Green leaf.
And that it is, but it's a very common picture to my mind of a flower leaf, and it's not particularly sharp. And I'm a bit distracted by what is going on in the background. There is a lot that is taking my eye away from this photograph, even though all the colors are pretty well complementary to each other, except for that part in the upper right. I also find the highlight to be blown on the flower a bit, and by itself, it didn't pull me in, so it doesn't stay in.
Gulf fritillary.
Yep, it's a butterfly I never heard of. My wife, by the way, is raising and releasing monarchs down here. Really nice photograph of a butterfly. I wish I could see its eyes a bit better. The colors work quite well in that it's warm, the rest of the green, while complementary to it. I mean, green and yellow work really well together quite normally, and they do here. But to me, it's still a relatively ordinary picture of a butterfly. So no, it doesn't stay in.
Lady in yellow.
The first time I looked at this picture, I said, wow. And then I looked a little bit deeper. I love the yellow. I love her hat. I love the blue flowers. What disturbs me a bit is the sharp cutoff between the flower bed that she's walking through and the green and too sharp background of the trees behind her. Yet I still feel it's good enough to keep it in. So let's keep it in.
Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Okay, looking at this now for about the third time, I really, even though the colors work well, I really couldn't find a place where I wanted to rest my eye. I was trying to figure out what the photographer really wanted me to look at. Was it the front row that leads off from the left and that goes off to the right? Was it the bottles behind it? I was also bothered a bit by its lack of contrast, its lack of snap. I would have liked a bit more of that to try to give it an impact that I don't find it has. So no, it doesn't stay in.
Magenta cyan.
Well, he or she certainly named it correctly. And it's a wonderful photograph taken at a great, somebody worked really hard to do this. I love having the little bubble coming down and then hitting the part that's coming up. It's beautifully done. It doesn't lack for composition in any way. It's a beautiful instant photograph. It stays in.
May the forks be with you.
I enjoyed this photograph immensely. And if it was in a different contest, this might have gotten a little bit higher mark than I'm quite willing to give it now, because this is a contest that is dealing with the use of color in a particular way. And I can't quite relate to why the photographer chose blue, but neither am I sure what other color would have worked for this. This almost, to my mind, should have been in the monochrome section, not in the color section. But it's a really wonderfully done image and it's still in.
Monastery blue.
Here we have taken the coolness of the eaves and sidings of the monastery itself, leading you to the warmth that leads to the altar in this church. And the coolness pulls you in to that warm spot. The coolness works with what's near the floor at the bottom. Everything works really well. Composition is perfect. Wonderful image in.
Ocean blue.
Perfect name, perfectly done image in that the colors here, while they go for the blue, they are not emphasizing the blue. This again could have worked just as well in the mono category. The tree limb in the lower left, the tree itself all there by its lonesome in this vast expanse, just simply has a huge amount of impact. There's nothing wrong here, and it's definitely in.
Odd one out.
Loved it because of that bare light bulb in there. And that's what made this photograph. We have, again, complementary colors, both in the roof itself, both in the light bulbs that are covered itself, that lead to the barely yellow, white, bare bulb background, offset by a nice dark background behind it. It's in.
Pickled plums in Kyoto.
Again, we're using almost one color here, and that color is the yellow in the plums themselves. But this photograph says so much more than just that. Not only do we have those beautiful plums, but we have the white bases, the plates that they are on, offset by the blackness of the shadows below them, which again is offset by the blackness that surrounds it, except for the white part that highlights the shelves, the little pieces that they are on. It's beautiful, it's in.
Primary colors on the wing.
Perfect, perfect title for it. We have red, green, and blue, which are primary colors working very well. I have a little bit of problems with the brightness of the leaves behind it. I might have selected the bird and darkened the background a bit more. I also missed in this picture that one leaf that cuts off his foot from reading the branch. There's a little bit too much information for me in the lower left-hand corner. Yes, the person who took this photograph met the full intent of what the contest is, but with some slight improvements would have made this, I think, a better photograph, but no, it still stays in. It's a good image. Love the bird sharp eye.
Rainbow Stairway, Puerto Rico.
I couldn't make up my mind with this photograph if it was past what you were looking for, Mike, in this, because there are so many colors, and yet the name is dead on right. We've chosen all the colors. The blue works against the green, works against the yellow, but I thought the contest was meant more to be about a particular color and how that color was used to offset others. And I don't find that working in this photograph. So no, it does not stay in.
Red hot.
You don't have to say much more than the title. Beautifully composed image. The red obviously says hot in some ways. It says passion in other ways. The smoke that comes out says, I'm boiling hot. And yet the reflection below it just goes to a little bit darker, a little bit more, shall I say, coolness in its own way. It's a beautiful image. I love the square photograph here. It's in.
Red rose.
I wish there was more of one rose in this picture, so many. When I brought this up in Bridge and ACR and looked at it, the photograph was not sharp enough in any particular spot to really keep my attention on that one spot. Again, I like the use of the square photograph here. I find the highlights in the background a bit distracting. I'm afraid to say it doesn't stay in.
Okay, here's a long title. Rhapsody in Blue with airliner transiting at 10 o'clock.
That's quite a long title for the picture, but yeah, it works very well. The blue is obviously working very well, showing you the nighttime sky. The trees in the bottom work that way too. The airliner that happens to be passing by could have just as easily have been a falling meteor. Really nicely done picture. It stays in.
Rifle reflections, Sweetwater Creek.
Yes, a nice abstract. The photographer here decided to use the slow shutter speed to stop the action of the water. The colors again here work really well together. We have that green, the basic green, working against the grayness of blue and then into the blue of the wave as it comes in. I'm a bit disturbed by the bright white part of the wave on the right-hand side of the picture, which tends to draw my eye there. I think I might, if this was my image, have either toned that down a bit or even cloned out those spots, especially the one in the lower parts. Brought it into where the wave was again. Picture is good, picture stays in.
Rose.
It's a really nice photograph of a rose. What can I say about the color? Because it's one simple color. The color works really well. I find it a very sharp, very nice image. But roses to me speak about an emotion that I feel this image lacks a bit. I find it a bit static in its outlook, the way it's projecting towards me, but it's good enough to stay in.
Simply Red.
And blue and green and all sorts of other colors in it. So no, it's not simply red. Yeah, the lips work really well. The way the picture leads you in and then takes you down the hallway to the right works really well. It's really a fun image. I wondered where this was and I really liked it. I do have one minor complaint. I know who the photographer is because he signs his name at the bottom of the picture itself. When I'm displaying a picture, I don't sign the image itself, except maybe if you want, you're displaying on the net and you hope somebody won't steal it. I tend to sign the images either on the border of the image itself, and that gets placed behind the mats. So it's not generally seen. Now, Michael, in this particular case, did a nice small signature. So it's not too disturbing, but it's not something that I recommend in general that you do. Stays in.
Splash Yellow.
Yep, really is. The yellow works really well, being offset by the grays. Again, this image could have easily been in monotone as well because it's offset by the grays that work at the bottom part of the splash. Having the part coming down a little bit works against that black background beautifully. Nicely done image, stays in.
That New Mexico sky.
Yes, it is. Yellows work very well against blue all the time. But I'm trying to figure out where, again, does this photographer want me to look in this image? Am I supposed to follow from the upper right out to the branch? And if so, where do I go from there? Yes, it's a picture more of the leaves in a given color than the sky behind it. Yes, we know it's a blue sky, and it could be anywhere. I see that sky in Florida. I saw it in New Jersey. Fairly common picture to me, and no, it doesn't stay in.
The Fence of Future Architects.
Interesting name. Again, another one that would have worked very well in the monochrome thing. We have some light blues, we have some grays going, we have some lines that work, we have a bunch of light in the middle of it that seems to draw my eye into it, but I don't find that powerful enough to keep me in this photograph. So no, it doesn't stay in.
The Next Generation.
Okay, he might be. I'm asking the photographer here, the blue shirt, blue background, versus a sort of pinkish chair work well as contrasting colors. But I don't find, the young man is looking directly at me. And I find the lighting not quite complementary enough to this young person. It's almost as if it's too stark. And the lighting in the background on the chair takes away from his face. Plus, the chair is cutting his head in half right in the middle. It looks like somebody tried taking a professional portrait, but didn't quite make it. So no, it's not him.
The Tool for the Blues.
Really wonderful name for a really nice photograph of a guitar. I love the way the blue leads me into the part of the guitar that leads out of the photograph. It's, again, this would have worked just as well in the mono section, and I find it a very interesting photograph.
Two Red Balloons.
By the same person who took the single red balloon in the other one? I don't know that, but I found that picture to be a bit more interesting than this because my eye is taken away by the two red balloons, leading me to that center building in the middle, leading me to the bright part on the top, and yet not giving me a central place to look. I find my eye wandering around. So yes, the balloons are red, but I don't know if it would matter if they would have been green or blue. So no, it doesn't stay in either.
The last one, but not least.
Good.
Zinnia
My voice is
patch.
slowly giving out. Okay.
Zinnia patch.
Yes. It definitely is a patch. In this case, the front flower is the main part of the interest. We begin to lose interest as we move away towards the background. The colors in the flower work well. The one in the background, a little bit different. Almost looks like that flower is dying versus the much more lively one in the front. I find the background to be a bit distracting, even though the colors are relatively complementary to what's going on here. And no, it didn't stay in either.
Neal, what do you got, Daryl? We can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm back. That is a female hummingbird on my deck. And I have a hummingbird feeder. And on the top of the pole for the hummingbird feeder is that red metal hummingbird. And I looked there and this creature was perching exactly on there. And so that is done with an Olympus with their 300 millimeter, which means it is really 600 millimeter. And those Olympus cameras, some of them, you can set the selective color in camera. You don't do anything with Photoshop. And so, bam,
Wow.
That's a JPEG right out of the camera.
Whoa.
That's awesome. I didn't know
Now,
you
I
could do
use an
that.
Olympus also, but I shoot in RAW.
Yeah.
Wow. You
But
set that
She's
in
a cutie,
camera.
that bird.
Yeah, Olympus calls it color creator, and you can set the color and the value of the color
Right.
that you want to record
Whoa.
right in camera.
That's wild.
You can
It's
see
amazing
me
how
out.
well
Look at
this
that eye.
photograph works, though, because the eye in the sculpture part of it works perfectly against the eye of the bird. It's a wow photograph.
I was thrilled to get the picture. I never
I
thought
have tried.
to do that.
Yeah.
And why it's appealing because it's very structured. The composition, you have a triangle here, kind of. You have a triangle kind
Yeah.
of down here, a square. It's
Yeah.
got very geometrical. That's a good way to put
I
it.
spent weeks training that bird.
Yeah.
No, it was-
Carl,
it was
Carl
It's-
mentioned
instantaneous.
the eye of the bird and the eye of the sculpture, but to me that makes a perfect line with the water droplet that's on the sculpture,
Wow.
and,
Yes.
and that adds to it as well.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not comparing
And the
this to
super glue,
that's.
the super glue on its feet. That helps.
Look,
I'm not
my
compar-
sister,
I'm not
one
comparing
of my
this-
sisters asked me if that bird was alive.
I'm not comparing this to a Raphael, but it has the same principles that you see in Renaissance paintings, the triangular, the way Raphael did it, by the way, in his paintings. Okay,
Nice.
next one.
All right. Is Simply Yellow by Michael Amos. Anything, Michael?
He's here. but he's muted.
He's muted. He's probably out to lunch.
What place is?
Yeah,
There we go.
that was
There he
HM.
is.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah. I just started messing around like negative space and making the flowers look like they're floating and how they stood out. And that was the end result.
That's a
Very
very nice end result because you
Thank you.
use the negative space so effectively here that we have no clue almost as to what the background is, which emphasizes the two parts of the flower, the part that's closed or almost closed and the one that's open in the foreground. And they offset each other so well.
Thank
It's
you.
just a stunning image.
Thank you very much.
The next
welcome.
one is.
And number third place is Berlin's Memorial to Murdered Jews by Michelle Simmons.
I
Sure.
thank you. Obviously, this was taken in Berlin. And Carl, I really get what you're saying about the light sky. And I didn't before, but it was so dark in there and so light above that I'm not sure I would change it. I would try it and see, but anyway, the grass just really stood out to me. So
I thought the light sky gave it a kind of almost surreal look. So
You know, and I'm tending to agree with you, Michelle, on that the white sky does work here very well because it's saying something about the darkness below.
good comment.
And you read that into it, and of course, the little bit of life that's in the photograph, the green grass growing up among the cracks, again, say so much. And having that person that, yes, I think I could easily tolerate just leaving that sky as blank as it is.
Mhm.
Now, Michelle, one thing you might try is maybe using clarity or darkening just a little bit the concrete to make it pop even more. That's just a thought.
This is iPhone, I assume.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that's one way to make it pop without changing the sky. You bring out the concrete just a little bit more pop, a little bit more clarity. See what you get with that. Darken it just a wee bit, maybe more contrast.
thank
Okay.
you.
Good thought, Michael.
The second
Second
place.
place is Evil Eye by Daryl Neal.
Well, I'm still in my hummingbird stage. And
Oh,
that's
boy.
a male. They're about the only male I've got around. The rest are all females who are very territorial, incidentally. What I see outside my kitchen window looks like Star Wars. They're zooming around and shooting to see who can stick whom. So the guy's just sitting there, and it's indeed, he's got that nice, well, he's a ruby-throated hummingbird.
That's
Is that
interesting
in
because-
camera as well?
It is.
Wow.
Did you think about getting rid of this down here, Daryl?
Oh, yes. I have various crops. And the problem I had was when I took that out and he moved towards the right side, he was pointing out of the picture. Here he's pointing at least into space. So I went with it.
Well, I think that's fine because, but one strategy, if you want to take this out, is when he's gone, you remove this and you shoot it without it on there and just fill it in with it.
Good idea.
So,
I would simply darken that white part a bit. And I
yeah,
would leave it in.
Yeah,
I think
see
it works
that.
fine. I
could've
think
done
it's a
that.
good counterpoint to the curve in the hook itself.
the white's a good idea.
So that's a little bit too bright down there.
Yeah, you're right.
Alrighty, clone stamp, we'll get rid of it. Next one.
First place, Biscayne Blue by Michelle Simmons.
All right.
Thank you. This is a testament to keeping all your photos. This is one good thing about the cloud is I can keep all 30,000 photos because I couldn't use this as a regular photo. It was blown out and the back was fuzzy, etc. And I had overexposed it originally. And then when I came back and took everything else out, this didn't look quite, this didn't look bad. It wasn't overexposed. So
That's great.
But it doesn't, what you did is literally perfection here because you've made it so simple. and get it, and it gave, having the cabin cruiser in the background gave it such depth that you have a mysterious way of looking here of this little boat sitting there all by itself, not a soul in it, nothing around it, and yet that cabin cruiser sitting off back there.
Is it
It's
in Miami?
just- wow.
Is it Miami?
It is.
Wow.
Okay. And thank you, Carl. I really appreciate that.
May I only suggest, but again, it's subjective. I tend to be obsessed with geometry, so I might have done the composition where it's more in line. Move the boat a little bit over to line the corner here, so it goes in a straight line across. But that's just me. For me personally, I think there's a little bit too much space here, too much open space. But again, that's a subjective point of view.
I don't agree with Michael.
I tend towards the phi grid, Mike, so all my is a little off that way.
I thought the space.
But
really
again,
gave
that's
a
just a
feel.
subjective point of view.
I find the space works,
Right.
that we
That's
need it here.
either option. I think is successful. So
Yeah,
okay.
it would
So
be.
now we go to color.
Color.
And I'm going to do the filter on, deal with this thing. Wait a minute, just a minute. I gotta get this pulled up. There we go. Get them all pulled up. There we go. Rated.
Right now,
All right.
okay, there you go.
Okay, first honorable mention. Go ahead, Chris.
Which one do you want? Okay, I'll just read one here. Pickled plums in Kyoto.
Michelle
By
Simmons.
Michelle Simmons. Yeah.
I know it.
Woohoo.
Oh my goodness.
That's actually color photo. I didn't convert it to black and white. It was just so cool to me. It was in a store that I guess sold pickled plums. I had no clue that's what they were. I just thought they looked cool. And somebody from Japan told me, but they were just so cool sitting up there on the wall with the lighting on them.
And again, the use of the square there just simply worked beautifully.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm. And next we have Girl in Green by Enrique DePrat.
Yay, Enrique.
Yay. Huck,
Yay,
does
he'll
he ever
be
come on
happy.
these Zooms? He should come on these Zooms.
Doesn't do it?
Enrique is in Italy right now. That's why he had to
Yeah.
send
Oh,
his
that's
picture.
tough. I feel
yeah.
sorry for him.
Well, on the plane, I feel sorry for him.
Oh, yes.
And next honorable mention is Galapagos Ghost Crab by Steve Director. Steve's here.
Oh,
Woo.
yeah, I'm here. Thank you. Carl, you asked about how big that is. It's probably about 5 or 6 inches wide, a couple of inches high.
Oh, my.
It's
So
a
it's
decent
pretty
size.
small.
Are they tasty?
No, but the weird thing is the eyes follow you. And those
Ah.
things sticking up are his eyes or her eyes. I don't know what sex it is.
Wow.
And, it's the Galapagos, for those of you who have not been there, it's just a wild place, just a fantasy.
Are you lying on your belly?
I think I'm probably kneeling down, and
Yeah.
I'm probably further away than it looks, so
Uh-huh.
that when you use a longer lens, you look lower down than you are.
Neat.
They don't stand still for too long.
And the next honorable mention is Edisto Country Road by Michael Amos.
Hey,
This
Mike.
was taken 2 weeks ago on
Nice.
Edisto Island, and I like the canopies. I like the live oak canopies and how you can, everything's surrounded. It naturally leads your eye down the road to the center, to the brightest spot of the photograph. And it does that naturally. You don't have to do much to it. I mean, that's pretty much straight out of the camera.
Mhm.
Yeah. I had commented on that light leading you down the path so beautifully.
Thank you.
And next one, honorable mention is Deep in the Bouquet by Jim Harrison.
Yay, good job, Jim.
Yeah, let's see. This was in a bouquet that my daughter had gotten for my wife, Linda, for her birthday back in March. And there were just, probably 30 different flowers in the bouquet. So I walked around it about 12 times, and this is what I came up with. Just focused on the pistils and stamens, and
Well,
I think it's absolutely lovely.
It worked beautifully.
it's got
Yeah.
such a three-dimensional character.
Yeah, it almost looks like they're flying at you.
Yeah.
And I think Jim had his mojo on for this competition. He had a lot of good photographs, actually. So I'd say that. And then, okay, now we go to third, and
Third place is Curls by
That's third.
Gennario Morgan.
Yeah.
Curls by Gennario Morgan.
Okay, that is actually the gills on the
30,000
back.
feet.
Those are actually gills on the back of a lettuce leaf sea slug.
Oh my. What is a lettuce leaf sea slug?
It's in the nudibranch family. It's a very small slug. It carries its gills, the gills that breathe are all on its back, and then that's what they look like. And they come in different colors: blue, bright blue, mixed colors like this. And they're about, maybe when they're big, they're maybe about an inch long. The whole thing's about maybe an inch.
So Gennario, is that pretty much a transparent photograph in terms of the colors that you see, you would see through the lens?
That's what you would see.
That's beautiful. Great
Are you
job. I love it.
floating? Are you
How did
floating
you
over
manage
it?
to get this?
I'm actually about 30 feet down, floating, hovering over this slug as it's crawling up out of a hole. And I shot this with an old Olympus, I think a C5050 point and shoot
Oh, that is
in a
old.
housing.
Whoa.
It's a 5-megapixel camera.
Yeah.
It's just a wonderful
There you go.
shot, Gennario.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is fabulous.
Yeah, I'd be
There's
drowning.
such depth and there's such feeling in this thing, and I would have never ever guessed remotely
animal.
what it was. Exactly.
That could be in a nature magazine, no doubt about it.
Oh yeah.
I looked at it and I was trying to figure, is that fabric like from some kind of ruffle with some special lighting? Because
Nope.
honestly, it's just a great shot.
It's nature at its
Mario,
finest.
a question. Don't the nudibranch family and a whole bunch of other sea life have chromatophores, meaning that they change color as they flex and contract on themselves?
The nudibranchs, I'm not sure if they have chromatophores, but typically they come in a extremely wide variety of colors. I've seen some lettuce leaf snugs that are completely white. And then I've seen some that are extremely bright blue. They're so bright blue that you can see them from a distance. They're so bright. So that's kind of, and they come in different shapes. I mean, there are entire books dedicated to lettuce leaf slugs because actually, before the meeting's over with, I can show you guys a picture of one if you want to. And you can kind of get an idea of what it is.
Do they throw up their inside when they get worried?
No, I don't know about these, but I know flamingo tongues. If you see a flamingo tongue, which is a snail, and they look like leopard spots on the outside, that's actually their stomach. They take they push their stomach out, stretch it over the shell, stuff sticks to it, and then they pull the stomach back in.
That's an interesting way to eat. All right. Okay, and finally, second place.
No, that was second place, right?
No, that was
Ocean
third.
Blue. That's right. Ocean Place.
That's second place.
Ocean Blue by Michael Amos.
This was taken the morning at sunrise before the one from Edisto. And this is a long exposure because the ocean was really pretty rough that day. And it was just past the blue hour. And it actually looks like fog, but that's actually waves hitting those trees at the base.
How long was the exposure?
About
About
40 seconds.
Yeah. I was thinking over 30, maybe.
Yeah.
Very lovely. Very,
It's
very,
very
very,
simple.
Neat.
very serene. That's what I like about it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And first place, that's
Red
me.
Hot by Mike.
Hey, Mike,
Um,
send me a check.
Yeah, I already did. Most people probably didn't think I even did this one, but anyway, this was taken using black acrylic. So this is a real reflection.
Yeah.
And so I went to the grocery store and spent quite a bit of time trying to find the right shaped one. And so it was kind of a lot of red, but green. So I decided to paint it with acrylic paint to make it all red. And then the smoke is coming from an actual fire using bay leaves. So I put a little glass, that you put little candles in that are really thick glass. I put some bay leaves in there, took a torch and lit it. And I had to do that multiple times to get the flame I wanted. So this is finally the smoke I came up with. So the smoke is from burning bay leaves, hidden behind the actual red pepper.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's how I did it. It took a while to get it right, but I did a lot of burning and smoked up my place a little bit, but that's okay. I had fans on.
And you painted
because it was not all red. It had some red, but some green in it.
parts.
So what
Yeah.
I did is I took acrylic paint and I painted it red. And
Wow.
I used a little bit of black paint, acrylic, to get it to match the color that was already on the pepper. So I darkened the red just a little bit to make it so bright. So it's all painted.
Well,
Carl, have Mike show you his fake snake picture.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was
okay.
that was interesting.
Hey,
Okay,
Mike,
well, and also, folks, I want to mention the two items that last competition won Members' Choice. The first one was from Steve Director, a really fine shot, a coastal view of the Milky Way. So make sure you look that up if you want to see it. And then the other one for color was my shot, and I'm very blessed by this. Was Still Together. I appreciate that. So
actually, let me make a comment, please.
yeah.
That black plexi is a wonderful background. The problem with it is it scratches very easily, so you got to be careful with it.
Yeah.
When I was in the business as a commercial photographer, I used black plexi backgrounds frequently. The reason is it gives a front surface reflection. If you use glass, you get two reflections, top and bottom. If you use a mirror, the reflection's on the bottom, and you're going to get two again, the top one and the bottom one. But the black plexi reflects only from the top.
And one of the issues I had was when I had that glass holder on there, thick glass, and I was taking a torch, like a real torch, to torch the bay leaves. I was afraid it would melt the acrylic plastic, so I put some kind of like cardboard or something underneath that, so it wouldn't get hot and heat up the acrylic below it.
Is it transparent or is it a solid color?
No, black plexi just naturally creates these reflections. Like in that splash of yellow picture that I did, the splash, I used black dye, and I used a black bowl, and then I put black dye in the bowl, and that causes the reflection to pop back up.
The background is the plexiglass and had plastic black like background that's made of plastic. I folded it just a little bit over the plexiglass, so naturally that created a line, so I had to eliminate the line in Photoshop so it'd be smooth like you see. So
another thing you can do with black plexi is you can put a backlight with a gel on it, and either direct or bounce it off a white reflector, and it's going to give you a color background instead of the neutral gray or black.
right.
But still, the black plexi is a great reflector, great mirror, but it's front surface only.